Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, that's all good.
All right, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. We are super excited that you've decided to participate in our hackathon. The objective of today's session, and there's another one next Thursday, is to get you started, give you an idea of where to go to look for resources and get answers to your questions, maybe get access to some other tutorials, and also kind of walk you through a very simple demo application that I've put together recently that gives you a good idea of how to make those API calls and what does the code look like. And you will have access to the code as well that you can take and then plug it into your own code to kind of help speed up your development process. We will also share the tutorial, which gives you a step-by-step instructions on how to go and set up this demo application and then run it and test it out. So, of course, if you've registered for the hackathon, so you're familiar with the website, so I have it briefly open over here to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. And before I go on, a little bit of background about myself. So I'm Shahid Mithani. I'm a senior product marketing manager at OpenText and primarily responsible for helping developers with respect to our information management API services. So what is information management API service? Let me quickly switch to our developer website page. So this is what our developer website page looks like. It's all for the developers and has information, resources, tutorials, API documentation, linked to our community, everything that can help a developer successfully use our APIs. Now, you may have already visited this website and then kind of navigated through it, but I'll just quickly walk through the main elements so that it's easy for you to know where to go to access the information. You will see that our website here talks about three sort of different types of API services. Now, this developer website is dedicated to APIs, and we deliver APIs through three different means. The one that you would be most interested in is the one that comes as a bundle, where you build your own application the way you want, but you're looking to incorporate certain content management capabilities into your application. And so you're just looking for APIs, a collection of APIs. And that's what we call the information management services, or in other words, IM services. This is the area that, for the most part, that you will be exploring. But you would also notice that there are two other sections, and these relate to the APIs that are available for anybody who has purchased our software products, either cloud software products or the on-prem software products. Each product comes with its own set of APIs that they can use for integration into other parts of their application. So we won't go into that, but we'll just focus quickly into the information management services. So when you click on Explore, there's a very rich collection of documentation and overview about our platform, about the different APIs that are part of this collection. You can drill down into each individual service and then read more about it. There's instructions on how to sign up for the trial. There are some important developer concepts. And I would recommend coming over here first, where it says developer concepts, because these concepts will help you get started on the right footing. When you are signing up for the trial, and I'll talk about the trial in a bit, but before you sign up for the trial, it's important to understand what are the different terminologies, what are the different artifacts that get created when you sign up for the trial. As an example, you'll notice that during that trial sign up, we will create an organization for you. So what does that mean? We will create a tenant for you. You would want to know what that means, and the credentials that are generated at the organization level or at the tenant level, you want to make note of that. And you want to make sure that you understand, okay, these are for the organization. This username password is for organization versus this username password is for tenant. And then What are application? When you create an application within a tenant or within an organization, what does that mean? And what are the credentials related to that application? So you want to make sure you understand these concepts. So go through this section first, I would recommend, and how it comes together. And then when you go through this trial sign-up process, it'll be much more clear for you as to what is happening during through that process, because it's kind of a multi-step process, and it can get a little, kind of complex, I would say. So if you are, once you've gone through that, some of the areas that you also want to kind of go through once you've signed up for the trial is our tutorial section. This is a whole section about all the different APIs for all the different services that are part of this IAM services bundle. There's a section on developer tools. Check out the extensions that we've created for Visual Studio Code and how that can help you speed up your development. Have a look at that. Now, if you are trying to focus on a very specific API, one of these specific APIs, what you can also do is go into the product section and pick the API service that you are interested in. And let's say that's capture service. When you click on capture service, we've collected everything related to capture service over here. There's an overview, list of all the documentation, the tutorials, the link to the APIs, and if there are any videos on YouTube, there are links to those as well over here. So if you know what API service that you want to zero in on, this could be a very handy way to make sure you end up exactly where you want to go. Okay, so this was kind of quickly and kind of an idea of how the website has been laid out. You'll notice, as I talked earlier, there are APIs that are available through other means as well, through other software applications or products. For the most part, again, you will be kind of focusing on the IAM services, but these other two sections I just wanted to mention that are related to the APIs that are available or that come through with the software products that we sell. If you are ready to sign up for a developer account, and if you haven't done so, then of course there's a button over here at the top that'll take you to the sign up page, which is coming up over here, right? If we go back, I'm just going to lower my browser here because it's hiding behind the bar at the top. Going back to our developer website, once you sign up for the developer, what it allows you to do is fully access our developer community, which has a huge group of developers communicating and trying to help each other out. And that's where they come with their questions and we help them with the answers. Again, going back to the developer website, once you've signed up for the developer account, what you now want to do is to sign up for the 90-day free trial. And for you to be able to do that, you want to go to the plans section. And here it'll list out all the different types of plans available for you. You want to start off with the free trial. It's a 90-day free trial, and hopefully that's a sufficient amount of time for you to explore our APIs and understand how these services can help you build the application that you would want to build. So go through the sign-up process over here. And as I was mentioning earlier, as you go through, it's going to create different artifacts, an organization, a tenant, and the credentials that it's going to create. You want to make sure you understand and make note of that. We've got some very good tutorials to help you get your sign up done right. And so if you click over here where I just click here, it'll take you to the documentation, for sign up. And again, as you had seen before, it takes you right where we were earlier, where it says sign up for trial, and all the instructions and steps have been very clearly explained on this page. So make sure you have a look over there as well. Okay, so this was kind of to give you an idea of what our website looks like and where you can go to access resources or to sign up. What we want to do now is kind of give you an idea of the APIs a little bit more. Again, talking about documentation, let's go into the API section. I'll go into overview, and let me expand this a little bit. And let's say we go into capture service. You can read about the capture service in the overview section, but what this page also allows you to do is it's very interactive. You can actually use it to make actual live API calls. So you go through the authorize step where the credentials that you received, you want to plug them in over here. You'll notice that it's got authentication sections for different sites. And what these are is there's one that's related to your trial. So it's a development site or development environment. So you want to look for the one that has the word DEV, and it's all in North America. So you're going to look for a URL that says NA1DEV. So just scroll back up a little bit and you'll notice there you go. So there are three different ways to authenticate for through this page, through the API page, for for the APIs that you want to test in your trial. So you can pick any one of these, plug in the tenant ID, the client ID, and secret. Again, you'll learn, if you haven't already explored the documentation or gone through the steps, you will be able to gather these when you do that. And once you have the authentication token, then you can actually call any of these APIs. So there is a button that says try out that lets you put in the parameters and you execute, and it'll give you the response. And here are some of the example responses at the bottom that tells you if you get a 200, this is the kind of response that you'll receive. But if there was an error, like error 415, this is what you'll expect to see, and this is what it means, and so on. And this is how we've set up the API documentation for all the APIs. So feel free to use this to test the APIs, to test the APIs, and then you'll be able to program that into your own code after that. Next, what I want to do is I want to actually jump into the code that I've written for the demo. Now, what the demo is, the purpose of the demo is to give a very simple view of how those APIs can be used. So I have the app running through my Visual Studio Code, and this is what the front end looks like. So I'm just going to refresh this, and then we'll go through that again. And here is the code. So the code is available on GitHub, and the link will be published tomorrow, hopefully, on the Hackathon website. In addition, there will be a link to the tutorial. So whatever we're talking about in terms of the setup and using of this demo, there's a very nice detailed tutorial. We'll have a link to that tutorial as well on the Hackathon website. So right now, let's just quickly go and give me a second. Let me just put them side by side, and I can. So once you download the code from GitHub, the majority of the code is in under the source folder is in the app.js file. Okay, so, and the way I've kind of programmed it and kind of documented it, every step on the screen on the left has a corresponding function on the right with the step number, right? So this will help you hopefully kind of associate the code with the functionality that's on the screen. And again, this code will be available to you for you to use to copy and paste into your own code if you'd like, to kind of quickly get started with the application that you want to build. So feel free to do that once you have access. So first step is to get an authentication token. The credentials that you would have received during the trial signup is what are the credentials you're going to use. There's a properties.js file in the source folder, which is where you're going to plug in all those credentials. And from there, this code is going to pick the properties and then be able to make those calls. So first step, get the authentication token, and then we'll need this token, or we'll need to pass this token in all the API calls that we make on the developer cloud. The first API that we want to showcase over here is the capture service. Now, capture, in simple words, is a service that allows you to take documents that are most likely scanned, or you are scanning through a scanner, a physical document is scanning through a scanner, and you can kind of upload it into our kind of capture service kind of staging area, and then run certain operations depending on what you'd like to do. The service that we're trying to showcase over here is to convert an image of a document. In our specific case, it's an invoice, and turn it into a text searchable PDF. I think that's a very common need for businesses who have scanned documents and they want to be able to turn that into kind of machine readable, text searchable PDF files. And so that's one of the services that I have programmed over here. So step number 2 is first to load that file onto the staging area of the capture service. And again, on the right side, we're looking at the code, and the steps 2A and 2B correspond to these two steps over here. So let's go and pick up a file in the package, the code package that we will have available for you on GitHub. There's a samples folder from where you can pick any of the images, or you can upload any of your own file that you want to try out. It's going to, again, turn that image into a text searchable PDF, whichever document that you upload. And in our case, we are uploading an invoice. And then the upload function over here is going to put it into the staging area of the capture before we can do any kind of operation on it. And we'll receive a file ID for the file that is just uploaded. So we just demonstrated that. The step 3 is to then call the operation to turn that image file into a text searchable PDF. So again, on the right side, the step 3 over here is the section of the code that is used for this operation. So we'll call this API and it's processing it, and then it'll bring back a new file ID that corresponds to the PDF that is generated in real time. Okay. Just pointing out on the right side, for every function, you'll see that there's a URL that's kind of put together. So this kind of gives you an idea of what service is being called within the capture service. The next step is another different API. This one, we are going to use the content storage service, or CSS. Now, content storage service is a permanent storage within your tenant that is created in the developer cloud. So there's a different API service that takes any file that you provide and store it permanently in your content storage. So what we want to do is, once this PDF has been generated, let's say we want to then put it into our content storage, so whatever application that we are building is able to access it. Here's another function. Again, on the right side, I'm going to scroll down, and this is steps 4A and 4B, where it's going to take the file, first of all, from the content storage and upload it into from the capture service staging area and put it into the content storage. So that's the next step. And it says, okay, I've retrieved 288 bytes of data, and I've uploaded into the content storage. And sorry, the first step is to retrieve. My apologies. The first step is to retrieve the file. So retrieve the file from content from the capture service staging area. And the next step is to now upload it into the content storage. So it's a 2-step process. It's 2 different API calls. And now you have the file ID from the content storage service. Okay. Now, the next step is to showcase another API, which is the content metadata service, or CMS. And what you want is any content or file that you upload into your storage, you want to create a metadata for it to make sure you can, kind of identify and make that file searchable. If there are multiple files, you want to be able to search for that file quickly, or similar files quickly. You can categorize them of what kind of file it is, and all of that information is stored in the metadata. So you want to create a metadata for that file. What you also want to do is keep your files organized. So you want to create some folders. And that too is a function of the content management service. So first we're going to create a folder. So let's say I'm going to give this, I'm going to create a folder called my folder, 10. Okay, so I want to create a folder using content metadata service. I'll get a folder ID. And the next thing I want to do is I want to create the metadata for that PDF that was uploaded into the content storage. But I also want to associate that file to this folder. So I can do all of that in this step. And let me scroll down on the right side to going down to step number 6. And you can, again, make a request to create the metadata for the file. And you can also associate that to the folder that you created. Now, when you're creating a metadata, a lot of times people want to be able to re-upload the file that may have been previously loaded. So you're creating a new version of that file. So what you want to do first is see if that file already exists. And if it exists, then just make another request as the new version. So in my code, you will notice that I'm checking whether the file already exists. And if the file if the file exists, then you want to add it as a new version. Okay? And if it doesn't exist, then it's a different call to create a new content metadata, with version number 1. So that's what we're doing over here. And the last part is now to see how we can download the content from the content storage. So that's the last part over here. That's step number 7. It's just retrieving the file from the content storage. And if I download it, I click the download button, it's going to bring me over here. Let's just open the file and have a look at what it looks like. Okay, so here you go. So this is what the file looks like, and it's fully text searchable. Okay, and it's a PDF. So that is the last call, API call. And so you will see in the code on the right, once all of those functions are listed, then you have the code that kind of renders the page, the web page. Let me bring this down a little bit again. Okay. And if we go back to the UI, so we're back over here. So that's the application. I've tried to keep it very simple, very straightforward, kind of highlighting. There are about 7 API calls over here on this page, and highlighting 3 of our kind of core API services, the capture service, the content storage service, and the content metadata service. Okay, we have about 5 minutes, and I'm happy to take questions. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat or the question section, and then we'll try to answer as many as possible. So Adarsh or Rick, you can let me know if there are any questions.
Hey, Shahid, yeah, thank you for the wonderful session. And we do have a few questions in the chat. So I'm going to read out the first one. So the first question kind of asks about what kind of services are available.
Of course. Great question. Let me just share my screen again, and then I'll take you back to the page that has a list of all the services. So if you go back to the developer website, so developer.opentext.com, if you go into Explorer here, if you click on products, then on the left side, these are all the products that are part of the bundle, the information management services bundle. So if I click on the overview, then here are, you can access them through here as well. So there's capture service, there's metadata storage, then there's decision service, RiskGuard. We're going to cover that next week. We're also going to cover a little bit more of the capture service because it's a critical one, and there's another function that I want to showcase. There's also viewing service that allows you to display any kind of document in your application without necessarily worrying about whether I have the license for that software that can display that document or not. So the viewing service gives you that ability. And the workflow service, which allows you to create workflows behind the scenes based on the content that's in that data. I just want to point out there's a really good demo or sample application on our website called Contract Approval. And it kind of has a very robust workflow built behind the scenes that looks at certain values related to the document or contract that you upload. And then it decides who needs to sign off on that contract. So, you can have a look at that sample application as well, if you'd like.
And there's another question related to services, which says, do we have to use a minimum of 3 services?
So that's a question related to Hackathon. I'm not sure what the exact answer to that is, but I'm sure all the questions or information should be on the Hackathon website, but I'll have a look after this session. And if the answer is not there, then we'll make sure that we provide you the answer through, we're going to start a developer forum for the Hackathon. So we'll provide the answers through that forum in the next few days.
Right. So before we head into the next question, I'm just gonna quickly put out a note to all the participants here that if you have any question related to login or credentials, we're gonna have a discussion forum, like Shahid said, and we're gonna launch the discussion forum soon. So you can ask all your question related to credentials in that. And in this webinar, we're gonna take up question related to the OpenText walkthrough that Shahid just gave us right now. So coming back to the Q&A, we have another question which says, can the API handle handwritten input and perform search functions effectively?
Yeah, so there are two major services. One is the capture service, and I'm sure I understand the question correctly. There's a capture service, there's a RiskGuard service that looks for PII and PSI on the document. So yes, they can recognize handwritten text. Again, you'll have to run it a few times to make sure that it can completely recognize human handwriting. You can also kind of scan images. It can also look at images. If there's text in the image, it can convert that text. It can capture that text in any images that are in a document. As well as when it comes to RiskGuard, it can look at whether the image is risky, if there's any images that represent violence or any kind of risk. It will flag those and it'll tell you what it has found in the document. So yes, there are services that can handle those kinds of input.
All right. So the next one says, are there any image recognition or auto suggestion services available?
Yeah, so like I said, yes, there is for both capture and RiskGuard services.
All right. Next one says, can any API perform medical NER, name entity recognition?
Can you repeat the question again?
Can any API perform medical name entity recognition?
Medical name entity. I'm not exactly sure what that question is really asking, but
so,
it's.
Yeah,
but,
no worries. Yeah, please go ahead, Shahid.
So one thing, so these APIs are all context free. So they're not specific to any particular, segment or sector. So you can build rules to train it to recognize certain types of words, or if they're located in certain specific places on the document. So the next demo that I'm going to do next week, it's going to take a lab report, a medical lab report, and how do we capture essential information and know what each of these values means. So we can identify, okay, this information or text over here in this document represents the doctor's name, and this represents the actual, the kind of results of a specific test, and so on. So once you've put those placeholders and, then the capture service will know, okay, this data represents this information and this data represents this information. And the rules then that you build will then dictate what you want to do with that information.
All right. So he has kind of elaborated on the question. So he said that I meant that can it extract insights from raw text?
Again, I apologize. Can you repeat that again?
Can it extract insights from raw text?
I'm not sure if I completely understand, but once we post, we open up the forum, we'll let you post this question over there, and then we're going to try our best to answer that question.
Got it.
And I apologize.
So the next one says, should we refer to the contract application example that you're referring to get an idea of how we can use IMS for purposes specific for the hackathon? For example, querying patient data.
Not necessarily. It depends on what kind of solution you're looking to build. The contract approval application definitely gives an idea of how do you take a document, identify the critical data that's there, and then decide how do you want to process it. So it's a good example. Of course, there is an application for that in the medical field. So you can definitely, if it helps, you can definitely take a look at that sample. There's another demo that we're going to look at next week. There might be something there that might be helpful for you depending on what you're looking to do. Again, that one is related to taking a medical lab report and, making sure that you can capture all the data from there and then putting it into a database. So that's kind of what we're going to look at next week.
All right. So